They see me rolling, they hating. I've brought you here to Belgium. We're on a carpodrome, a venue I've never fished before. There's some massive carp in here, and we're going to be using baits that I have never used before, so I can't wait to get started. We've got a chance of a 20 kilo carp on the pole. Never been anywhere where you can't actually get your rig in for fish. Already, I feel like I'm learning. There's a lot of fish in this venue, that's for sure. Yes, we're on fire now. We might be about to find out how good chickpeas are. That sounds daft, but I've attracted too many fish. Get on the chickpea, that is the biggest fish of the day, without doubt. If you're wondering what a carpodrome is, basically it's a commercial fishery. It's stocked with carp, but the carp are genuinely massive. And to give you an idea of match weights, 300 kilo wins matches here on a regular basis. I love fishing anywhere new, and the exciting thing here is, well, there's two exciting things for me. Firstly, we've got a chance maybe of a 20 kilo carp on the pole, but also I'm going to be fishing with baits that I've never used before. Everyone tells me how effective they are, and I can't wait to find out. So this is the bait I was talking about. Now, from what I can see, and according to local experts Sven, this is the bait the carp love. It's a mixture, I think, of wheat and hemp. So it's a particle mix of sorts. It's been boiled and cooked. It's got like loads of goodness all over it, loads of juice still in it. It does look good, but I'll be honest and say I've never fished with anything like it. And if that wasn't enough, apparently the best hook bait is chickpeas. I've never even fished. I've heard of carp anglers fishing with chickpeas, but it's not a bait that I've ever fished. They don't look, I'll be honest, very appealing, a bit bland, quite hard, but I've been told they're the best bait, so who am I to argue? One other point regarding the particle mix is, you think there's a lot there? They feed two of these. So if I drop that down, I've got a couple of other baits with me just because I like them. Got some sweet corn. For me, edge fishing, sweet corn's a great bait, highly visual, fish 2 or 3 grains. Just a really good, reliable bait, nice and heavy too, which I think is one of the reasons chickpeas are good. They're heavy, they're going to stay in place when those big carp come rooting around in the edge. So I've got some corn. And then lastly, a bait, I'll be honest, I've never caught a margin carp on worms, but loads of anglers swear by them. And in this situation where those carp could be ridiculously big, I've got a feeling 2 or 3 worms might single out that 10 kilo fish. So that's the theory, we'll give it a try. My target for today is a 10 kilo carp on the pole. Now 10 kilo, that's well over 20 pounds, so that'd be an awesome fish. I'm going to try and catch it in the margins. I always think big carp, they love feeding in the edge. Also, we should be able to see them. We should be able to see tails, maybe a few fins, etc. milling about. So it's going to be really exciting fishing. On the kit front, these carp are going to fight hard, I'm pretty sure of that. So if we start at the top, elastic is red hydro. I'm told that isn't heavy enough, but it's the heaviest I've got. And it's what I'd use for margin carp in England, and it's never let me down. So we'll see how that gets on. We've then got 022 N-gauge mainline and a 4-inch hook length of 019 N-gauge. Again, I'm told that's too light, but it is my standard margin setup. And the carp in here are big, I'm told, but I think I can land them on this. Hook is then size 12 XS spade. Honestly, don't think there's a better margin hook than the XS spade. Wide gape, ridiculously strong, really, really sharp. One of those hooks that just doesn't let you down. So if we move back up, then float choice is a 0.4 gram margin diamond. Really nice, thick, visible tip. Ideal for fishing in shallow water. I'm hoping there's going to be loads of double figure fish swimming around the float. So I'm going to be leaving a bit of show. And that thick tip is going to let me read the bites a little bit better, because one thing I don't want to be doing is striking at liners. So nice thick bristle, really strong float, glass stem, so it's got a bit of stability. You might notice above it as well, I've got 2 number 9 cube back shots. They're just there to give me a little bit of stability. I don't want the float wafting around all over the place, because that could cause foul hookers, and that's the last thing I want. Then last but not least, I've got a tight bulk of number 9 micro cubes, 4 inches from the hook. Again, I want stability. I want to be able to keep my hook bait in the same place. I want to be able to lower the rig in on top of the bait, hook bait in the perfect position, and it's not going to move about. And that's why I'm using 0.4 gram in just, I reckon, about 14 inches of water. So a heavy float in shallow water for me is a must when I'm targeting big fish. Something I'm a little bit nervous about is how hard these carp are going to fight. I've heard stories of minimum 0.25 line, ridiculously heavy elastic, which makes me think, are they going to pull a little bit harder than I'm used to? They're supposed to average over 4 kilo, which is basically getting on for 10 pounds. So even the small fish in here are going to be big. So one thing is for sure, they're going to test my tackle to the limit. Here we go. Bait sorted as I've shown you. Now it's time for the good part. Well, let's hope it's the good part, and that's the fishing. I'm going to kick the swim off with 2 big pots of the party mix, the wheat and the hemp. Obviously, I'm going with local advice. Sven's lovingly prepared it. He says it's the best bait here. Now, normally, if I was edge fishing, I'd prime the swim, but we want instant action today. So I'm not going to put like a ridiculous quantity straight in. Obviously, I'm using the pole tape. I want to be feeding exactly where my float's going to be. There's 1 pot. So I'm going to put 2 in and then literally go straight in over the top. If I was priming in advance, this is a ridiculous amount of bait, but local advice says they're hungry fish. And the more you feed, the bigger the fish. So we're going to go with 2 pots and go straight in. But we're going to have to feel our way in a little bit. Just checking that marker, straighten the pole out. Going to feed that one slightly into the deeper water. So that's 2 pots in. And then literally we're going to go straight in over the top. Do I go with corn or do I go with... I'm going to go with Sven. We're going to go with the chickpeas, as I've never caught a carp on chickpeas. I think there's a neck. It's going to thread it. They're quite hard, but they thread on literally quite nice, like so. Wind's blowing into that corner as well, so it does look nice. Going back to the feeding, it's literally, I'm going to put those 2 pots in. Well, I've obviously put them in, and I'm going to nail this so that my markers, there's a little bit of rush there, and I'm going to sort of lay the float onto the slope like so. Try and keep, almost let the wind push the fish, push the float against the slope. So I'm hoping the fish come lakeside up the slope, pick up that chickpea, and then basically just swim off with it, which should help me eliminate any foul lookers. That's the theory. I'm always trying to keep my float sort of bank side. So I'm almost fishing with my rig laying like that across. There's quite a lot of rocks and stones there. It's not a very even bottom. How I'm laying the rig in is really, really important, because if I just lower it in, because I'm fishing on a slope, I'm getting a lot more liners, more chance of foul hooking. By sort of lowering it in and then dragging it, so I'm dragging it almost up the slope, everything's nice and tight, the line's actually following the arc of the slope, so when I get a bite, it's literally almost hitting me. Oh, that looked like a swirl just to the right of the float then, which is good, because at least it's not behind the float. We might be about to find out how good chickpeas are. It's really windy now as well. But I definitely saw an... Oh, that was a ridiculous strike. One of the problems I've come across straight away is the amount of fish in the swim. It sounds daft, but there's too many. Now there's ways around this. There's 2 ways as far as I'm concerned. The first way, and it's one I've been showed by a local called Sven who fishes here all the time, is to lay your rig in, almost drag it against the bank, sit there and wait for the fish to hook itself. Now it works because there's so many fish there, competition element kicks in, those carp are just picking up the bait and swimming off. Personally though, I much prefer to what I call lift. So I'm laying the rig in, dragging it up that slope, holding everything nice and tight, and when I get that proper, what I call slightly faster, more positive indication, just a light lift. And when I say light lift, I'm talking about just lifting that float 2-3 inches clear of the water. That's just enough to set the hook, but if it is a line bite, I'm not going to foul hook it, or have a lot less chance of doing so. I'll lower it in. Oh, something just hit the chickpea then as I'm trying to lower it in. This is going to be an absolute nightmare. Fish are responding really quick to bait. Right. Just lay it across there. I'm laying loads of shot on the bottom now. I'm hoping they're just going to swim off with it. Oh, that's an F1 type strike. There's a lot of fish coming in really quick. Try and get it in now. There we go. That just bolts now. I'm actually laying that right on the slope. There's a massive tail right by my float. I'm trying to hold it to stop it getting wafted. Unless that bolts. Oh, look. They are literally... There is loads of fish there, and obviously this is not as easy as it looked. Right, let's see if we can get it to go back in. There's too many fish. Sounds ridiculous, but when you're fishing the edge, particularly in shallow water, you can get too many carp in the peg, and I've attracted too many carp instantly. The way around this is to fish what I call inside my bait. So what I'm having to do is feed slightly further away from the bank and then put my hook bait tight against that slope. That's really, really important. Bank side. So the majority of the fish are actually feeding what I call lake side of the float, working their way up the slope, and then eventually they find my hook bait and I get a much more positive bite. If I try and get my hook bait in amongst the loose feed, as in right in the centre, it's literally impossible. Never been anywhere where you can't actually get your rig in for fish. Right, that's in now. I'm almost tempted, unless it bolts like that. That looks better. I feel like they'd be a lot easier to catch if I had less bait in the swim. I didn't expect them to respond in those numbers instantly. Oh, it's a nice fish, that is. Common as well. A bit slow there. I was too busy admiring its beauty. There we go. We're on the board. That's an absolutely mint fish as well. Bit of ghost, almost like a bit of ghosty in that one. I reckon he's probably 8-9 pound as well. So there you go, my first carp from a carpodrome in Belgium. Cracking looking fish, and already I feel like I'm learning. There's a lot of fish in this venue, that's for sure, and this is a brilliant example, I think, of the average size. So I'm going to pop him back, start to slide him back, and see if what I've learned about feeding is going to pay off. Straight away I realise I've made a massive mistake in my feeding. Big pot in, it's attracting too many fish. I can't even get my rig in. There's literally carp everywhere. They're blowing bait all over the place. The swim's a mess. So I'm going to take the big pot away. I'm going to fish a large pole mounted pot and feed less to attract less fish. Sounds ridiculous to say I don't want so many fish, but they'll be a lot easier to catch if I can get just 2 or 3 coming in at a time. Then everything will be loads cleaner. I'm going double corn. Not that I don't trust them. We will try the chickpeas again, but it's nice bright yellow visible bait, and it's heavy as well, which is the same as chickpeas. I'm going to put a little bit of corn in the bottom of the pot, a little bit of the particle mix on top. Basically my idea now, I can't see any down there, is to try and feed for 1 at a time. Try and make everything a little bit cleaner. So let's got the pole tape in position. Let's empty the pot. Just dunk it so the water can get in. Emptied it out. I'm going to try and get my hook bait just bank side. So again, they should come from out in. So in theory, less bait there should attract less fish, which in turn, for me, should make everything a little bit cleaner. The bottom, I've also, doesn't plumb up great, so it doesn't make it easy. Just going to lift that a little bit higher up that slope. So I haven't attracted a fish yet, which might not seem great, or just seen one then to the right of the float. I need to keep that. There's another one to the, they're coming in now. They seem to come in like massive packs. I've got around 3-inch line on the bottom. I'm just trying to pull it against the, there's loads of stones in the water. There we go. That looks better. Not sure it's, again, I don't know, it might be bigger than I think. I've got about 3-4 inches of line on the bottom, and I'm literally dragging it up the rocks. I'm trying to feed my bait. If you imagine, I'm feeding my bait into the lake and pulling my float behind it towards the bank. The idea being the fish are coming from out in, so they'll come to the loose feed, work their way up, then find the hook bait, and I should get a much cleaner bite. I'm a big believer though in letting the fish tell you how the best way to catch them, and I felt like straight away those fish were telling me there's too much bait in the swim and there was a better way to feed the swim. So there we go, got him. That one's probably a little bit bigger, but that's two for like, don't know, two for in pounds, I reckon 18, 19 pound in what, 4 or 5 minutes. So perfectly hooked, really clean. Let's just pop this one straight back and we'll see if I've actually sorted anything or it was pure luck. I've adjusted my feeding so that I'm feeding less. Now what's quickly become apparent is feeding less, much cleaner bite, less fish coming in the swim, maybe a bit more efficient, but the window of opportunity as in to get a bite is much smaller. So if I don't get a bite almost within a minute of feeding with the little pot on the pole, well, it's a large pot, but not compared to a big pot on the end of my cupping kit, I've got to refeed again. Whereas with a big pot, I get a much larger window, as in a much longer time to catch a fish, but it's more difficult to catch that fish because there's bait getting blown all over the place. So that's my quandary at the moment. 2 grains of corn, like so, back to back. Nice big visible bait. Then a little bit of corn in the pot. Bit of the particle mix, just a nice light press, quite sticky. Can't see any down there, which again, sounds daft, but I like the fact I can't see any. Get the water in to unlock the, got a leaf. Lower the hook bait in. So basically that's where the bait's gone there. And I'm just going to drag it that side, so it's bank side. So the hook, so I've got a good 3 inch of line on the bottom, and a carp should come up, suck that up, and then just swim off into the lake. Oh, I can't be striking at liners either. You've got to wait for a proper indication. And that was a strike at a liner. Right, let the hook bait get set. Pull the hook bait closer to the bank, the float even. So you're sitting on that diagonal. Hopefully one will just swim up and bolt that under. You can tell how much line I've got on the deck by how the float's sitting. Not sure about that one, because I had a lot of line on the deck, but it feels pretty good. It's amazing fishing though, considering we've literally just started. This is a smaller one, I think. The only thing I'm now thinking is how am I going to catch one even bigger? It's all right. Short, fat mirror. Definitely the smallest. Well, definitely the smallest one yet. I reckon that's only like 4 or 5 pound. We've come here to try and catch a 10 kilo carp, which is a massive 20 pound plus fish. They work in kilos, obviously, in Europe, hence I just say kilos there. But what's apparent is there's an awful lot of good sized carp in here, and getting a 10 kilo fish isn't going to be easy. There's 2 ways of doing it. Maybe just play the law of averages, keep catching and hope a big one comes along, or I'm going to have to maybe feed a bit more, rely on the fact that big fish tend to be greedier, and if I feed more bait, maybe that big one will appear. This is, at the minute, it's what I'd call a really nice, steady way of fishing. And I keep saying it, but the pole tape is great for this, because it allows me to be really precise. This is the only little flat spot I've got in my swim, so it's dead easy to mark it with the pole tape. Right, lower the corn in and just drag the float bank side of it like so. You can almost see, almost like some of my bulks on the bottom there, which is a different way of fishing. But when you're faced with a swim like this, where there's a lot of fish coming in and it really doesn't plumb up nice, it's actually a very effective way of fishing. I haven't seen one come in this time, because it's really, really shallow against the bank. Oh, there's one to swirl my side of the float. Going to try and keep everything tight, and only strike when I get a proper positive when one literally sucks that hook bait and swims off. Oh, indication then. Not overly happy with that one. I don't know though. Yeah, looks pretty good. Feels like a little bit heavier. Got wrapped up in the line, but it is in the mouth. Seems to be that average sort of right in the corner. 8-pound fish. Really nice looking fish as well. I feel like I've settled into a really nice rhythm now. Where I'm putting the rig is massive, as in inside the bait, got my feeding right, everything's nice and clean. Pretty much eliminated foul lookers, which when you consider the amount of fish that are coming in the swim is pretty amazing. I'm really pleased with how it's going. The downside is there's no sign of this 10-kilo fish. Getting some really nice average sized carp, but I'm not quite sure, unless I maybe up the bait, how that big fish is going to come along. Lower it in where the hook bait's gone in. Just drag the float that side and hold it. Important to keep the pole bank side as well, so everything's nice and tight. Don't think that's quite as perfect as before, but I'm actually getting a lot less fish in my peg, which in turn makes everything a lot cleaner. Oh, nearly struck then. Is that it? No. Important not to strike unless you're 100%. That's it. Laid it on the, I've proper laid it on the slope now. Yes, lovely and clean. It's quite a different way of fishing actually, to have that much float out the water and a lot of line laying on the deck, but it helps minimise any chance of foul looking a fish. How big's this one? It might be a, I don't know if this is an F1. Looks a bit F1-y. Apparently there are some F1s. It is, it's a great big, rubbish bit of net in there, but it is a great big F1. It seems like everything's big in here. Like a bit of a fantaily F1. Right, popping back. On the hook bait front, I've got 4 options. I've got chickpeas, macaroni, worms and corn. Worms and corn, 2 old favourites from England. Worms are bait I don't fish a lot, I will admit, but I do love corn in the edge. Macaroni and chickpeas, totally new to me, but I'm reliably informed by the experts who fish here week in, week out, they are the in bait. So we're going to find that out, that is for sure. Having never fished with either chickpeas or macaroni, the first things I'm faced with, how do you hook them? Chickpeas are quite hard, so what I've decided to do is sort of thread it on almost like a grain of corn, but leave plenty of point showing. They're quite a hard bait, and I feel like the point isn't showing, particularly the way I'd like to strike as in lift. I'm not going to be able to set that hook, so just thread it on, try not to split the chickpea because it's quite easy to split it, and then with the macaroni, almost like hooking it like a caster, as in point in the top, in the open end, and then thread it round and just hook it on like that. I'm learning on the job, but to me, that's the way it looks like you should hook those baits. We're going to go back to where we started. Now we're a little bit more in control of the feeding. And we're going to thread on the humble chickpea. Bit of corn to the top. Just got this feeling to catch a big one. Might be a case of wading through lots, or it might be the case I'm not feeding enough bait. I'm trying to be all clever and get every fish in the mouth. But in reality, got that That's laying nice and flat. Must have laid that right on a rock. Fishing this way as well enables me to keep the pole away from the fish. I'm not waving it about directly on top of the fish. Oh, what do we reckon there? Not 100%. Different bites with a chickpea. This one's got some momentum. Hard to tell. It's not kicked yet. Bites are like faster, I'd say, on the chickpea. I don't mean faster as in quicker, I mean the way the float bolts under. This one's certainly testing the pole and testing the elastic. Looks quite a good one as well. Sven might have been right. That does look the biggest fish of the day. Get on the chickpea, that is the biggest fish of the day, without doubt. That's why they fish chickpeas. I knew they were right, that is massive. That is why you fish chickpeas. Biggest fish of the trip so far, I reckon. Proper heavy, 14, 15 pound. The first fish on chickpeas as well. Maybe should have listened a bit sooner, but is there something in it? We're gonna find out. Right, back on the chickpea. Obviously one fish on it so far. Don't know the way I've hooked that one. Let's go for there's a few different sizes in there. Let's go for that one. Don't know if there's a specific way. There we go. Like so. Bit of corn. Bit of wheat and hemp mix. Definitely fish coming in. Oh, he's going behind the float, which is not where I want him. Unless that bolts. Oh, I'm laying the whole bulk on now. It's not great. I'll give that 10 seconds. And if it doesn't shoot under, I'll reposition it. Didn't want to reposition it while there was a fish there. That was a bite. I'll be honest, I've never really margin fished like this where you lay. The fish can be really spooky of the line in England, and here it's definitely better. Whoa. This one's angry. Very angry. Whoa. Whoa, whoa. I didn't even think it was that big. This is why I'm using Engage excess margin. Well, this is exactly the type of fishing this pole was made for. Carp fishing on lakes where there's a lot of big fish like this one. To be fair, the pole oozes strength. I honestly didn't think this one was that big though. But it's certainly got bigger. It's another chickpea fish. I'm finding it hard to believe it's coincidence that two fish on chickpeas have both been big. I'm sure you could flavour these. I might even take some back home. Whoa, I might have made a schoolboy error there on shipping. Take some back home. I think they'd be good flavoured. Because they just look, although they're eating them, they look a bit bland to me. But again, it's just the chickpea. It's not a little one. Not that any of them are a truly little. I reckon that's probably a double. One of the issues with this swim is how it plumbs up. I've only got a really small area to fish in where there's not loads of big rocks. And in this situation, pole marker tape comes into its own because it ensures, because I can line it up with my hands, that when I'm lowering that hook bait in and dragging it up the slope, I'm doing it in exactly the same position on the perfect bottom every time. If I'm 3 inches out, either way, I'm either not going to get a bite or I'm going to foul up that fish. I need to be on that specific spot every drop in. We are catching really, really well. So I'm going to continue with the chickpea because that seems, I haven't had any little ones on the chickpea. Let's go for a big chickpea. I'm going to take off the large pot and we're going to go with the big daddy pot. So look, which need that hole there. This is the XL pot. Then that is a proper pot. Right, let's put a bit of corn in. This should get the swim. This will either kill or cure. My thinking here is, probably don't need the lid on. I can just tap it out better then. My thinking here is more bait, big fish. Big fish are greedy. So, probably be good hair rigged on a lead or something as well. Right, now this will be interesting. More bait, big bait, lots of bait, big fish. Is that a bite or a liner? I waited for it to hit me because I wasn't sure. That's the beauty of line, a lot of line on the bottom. You can sort of wait. You know, the average has definitely gone up with the chickpea, but I'm still not sure how I'm going to get, such a good average stamp, how I'm going to get the fish we came for as in the target fish. Line it up, submerge it, let the water in. It literally comes out in a massive clump. Get the bait that side. A little bit in the deeper water this time. So if you put it closer to the bank, you wait longer for a bite, but you know it's going to be in the mouth. Whereas I'm chancing it a bit this time. Another fish. It's great fishing. It's just, I really want one of them great big ones, and I'm pretty confident, although this one's steaming off, it's not. It's not the 10 kilo fish. This pole is so good for this type of fishing. So strong, but stiff too. This fish is pulling a lot harder. One of those poles you never think you're going to have to worry about. My God. This might be a bigger fish, or it just might be one that's fighting a bit harder. It's not plodding like a big, I think big ones are more ploddy head shake. Oh, it's a nice fish. You can see why they get such massive weights in this venue, because the average size is so high. It's one of those fish though that's just, there it is. Keep its head up. Yeah, good double. two things I'd say. The XL pot is producing maybe a slightly damper fish, and also the chickpea. I haven't had any of them like F1s or 4-pounders on the chickpea. My only concern is it purely a percentage game to get a big one? We need a big fish. We are playing the numbers game at the minute, and the fishing's ridiculously good. 10-pounders most drops in, but we haven't had a 20-pounder. We have been given, however, a local favourite bait, macaroni we're on now. So we've gone from chickpeas to macaroni, but the chickpeas have produced the highest average size fish, so who am I to say that macaroni won't work? So I'm just going to hook a single bit on, like so. I think they fish a single bit. Still on the 12 XS spade. Drop that in. Still on the XL pot. Full of the particle mix. Let's see if we can single out on the macaroni the fish we've come for. Oh, something tried to eat the macaroni on the way. So we can lower it in. Oh, we're in on the macaroni. Is he just turning round? No. They all feel much. I feel like if you up to 25 pounder there, it'd have to turn round like a bus. And this one didn't turn round. But it's another fish on a totally new bait for me. Actually, I don't even think it's that big. I don't know though. We'll have to have one more go just to be. There's an odd fish moving as well, just to really conclude it. But this is actually small. The chickpeas are definitely the winner so far. It's a carp though. Chunky mirror. One for the macaroni, but poor stamp. So we had one on the macaroni, and it was a little one. So we're going to go, if I can get under there, we're going to go big up bait, big fish, 2 bits of macaroni. We're getting into the last chance saloon now. Big pot of particle, wheat and hemp, double macaroni, here we go. Lower it in. Set the trap, and we're in instantly, and it's another little one for the macaroni. Quick bites on macaroni, to be fair. So I think when we get this one out, time's running out. Oh, it's not that little actually. Time is running out on us. That's a double figure fish. I said that was a little fish, but it's still a double. I've caught loads of fish in the edge, but we haven't caught that big fish. Now I'm thinking, is that because the depth of water? A big 10 kilo fish doesn't want to swim into inches of shallow water. I don't know because I don't know the venue. So change of plan. We're going to go short pole in the deep water. Maybe in that deep water, that's where the bigger fish are sitting. Got a 0.5 gram JL on, nice thick tip again, ideal for short carp work. 022 N gauge mainline, 6-inch hook length, 019 N gauge, size 12 XS spade, strung bulk of number 9 cubes, and then red hydro again. Really simple rig. Sven says they eat loads of bait, so we're gonna, to kick it off, we're gonna double pot it and literally go straight in with a chickpea, because chickpeas have been, it's that time of day as well now where I'd expect a big fish to be coming short. So 2 big pots of the particle. Just making sure I'm lined up. He says potting's better than throwing, so I'll bow to his superior knowledge. Got the 2 little back shots above the float as well. Chickpea definitely, I think, is my best chance of a big one. And they have responded, they're really quick to bait, so I wouldn't expect at this time of day to wait too long. Just letting everything straighten out, making sure I'm lined up, lower it in. Quite like short fishing, to be fair. I always think this time of day as well, right in front of a platform, in the keep net holes or that type of area, where big carp expect to find bait. It's definitely silty because there's a lot of bubbles coming up. Just make sure everything's nice and straight. I don't think I've ever seen a swim with this amount of bubbles in that quick a time. There we go. Is this big? Not convinced. It's not little either. Come on, come up and be a... Well, it's a nice fish. And a great... What's that, took about 3 minutes? It's a decent fish, to be fair. Probably a bit bigger than the ones I've had in the edge. Well, not bigger than all of them, but it's a good double figure fish. On venues like this, I do think bait choice is really important. If I hadn't been given the particles, I'd have probably gone with like a micro, a maggot, or ground bait and maggot approach, and I think that would have been a disaster. I think when there's that number of big double figure carp coming in your swim, you need baits that are heavy. Corn would have worked, and obviously hemp was part of the hemp and wheat chicken mix, as they like to call it. And I think that's the right approach. I also think these carp are used to seeing particles. They associate particles with food, and it therefore makes sense to give them what they want. Right, we've had the first fish there. I'm going to put another full pot in. I'm going to be mega positive. To catch big fish, you've got to be positive. Full pot. Chickpea on the hook. Thread it on. And in we go. Still an odd bubble coming up. Took a shot off as well, so I can try and read what's happening a little bit better. Just keep lifting and dropping. I like to lift and drop just to make sure the rig's nice and straight. Those fish must be literally ripping up the silt to get at like the hemp and wheat. Important as well to lift and not strike when you get liners. I think that's in the mouth. Don't know though. Yeah, I reckon that's in the... That's a giant eel, I reckon, in the tail. I love my life. I don't know though. No, he's in the mouth. Great scoop as well. Good average fish again. Right in the bottom lip. Pop the hook out. I reckon we're running out of time. So I think I'll double pot it. Let's go positive to the end. And then one last fish and hope. Let's really get it fizzing. I feel like we're struggling for bubbles. Drain the liquid out. Straight back in, double pot it. One last chickpea before I take these home. Thread it on. Here we go. Got them boiling. The fish just boiled then. I can't see how they feed 2 of them big buckets of particle that I had, but I can see how they feed one. Because there's so many fish responding so fast to the bait. Here we go. Is there a 10 kilo fish down there? Here we go. That's not 10 kilo. I don't know though. I do know. So what, they come in quicker in the deeper water. Can't quite see it, but it just hasn't got that big plod in that I'd imagine a 20 odd pounder would have. This whole corner now is a mass of bubbles where I've been feeding. It's almost like the chickpeas, like a big grain of wheat, a big target bait. They definitely like them, they definitely home in on them quick. And my stamp throughout the session has been best on chickpeas. Here we go, we're gonna get a look. Are we gonna get a look? Sort of. It's gonna need a big belly if it's gonna be 10 kilo. Here we go. It's actually smaller, I think, but just a scrappy one. Still not a bad one to finish on. Well, there you go. It's a wrap, as they say. We haven't caught that 10 kilo fish, but we've caught an absolute stack of carp with some of the highest average sizes I've ever seen. In fact, I'm not sure I've been to a venue with so many big carp. As I said, I've really enjoyed it, and it's a venue I'd love to come back to. And I'd like to fish a match, as weird as it sounds, just to see how the locals do it and whether I could compete.